techniques. So I would like to start with the first question on specifications. Richard, projects exist because of customer requirements. So to achieve the most out of your projects, where do you start from? Is it defining only the technical specs in every bits and piece of detail, or is it better to just let the EPC deal with the functional requirements?
Well, traditionally, we've used specifications, and we're all familiar with that. What specifications do is, it's a good guideline. However, they're outdated. They're 2, 3, 4 years old. They're sitting in somebody's SharePoint site. They're not updated. And what we're finding is that when we're using that, we are not in touch with the latest technology, the leading edge technology. And as an end user, that's what we want. So we're moving towards functional specifications so that we can tap into our vendors' supply chain and technology and hopefully get the benefit as the end user. Because you deal with a lot of clients, you deal with a lot of different industries, like you mentioned, petrochemical, mining, etc. And of course, as the end user, you want to benefit from those new technologies. Our engineers do projects ad hoc basis, and the projects are not consistent. So there's a gap between that, and we're not getting the fruits of our labor.
Yeah. And how do you fill that gap as an EPC?
Yeah, it's always a challenge to keep this gap short between the technical specifications and the final and the functional requirements. But what we always do, I prefer, is to do like a hybrid model. So basically, for the equipment inside the e-house, switch gears, UPS, we have these kind of the equipment always have their technical specifications, and mainly there are no issues with that. The main challenge comes with the e-house specifications. So this is the functional specification that needs to be tailored according to the environment of the project, according to the client requirements, according to the project nature. So that is the main challenge. And as an EPC, we always try to involve all the different disciplines inside the company to help us with developing this kind of specification. And it doesn't happen at once. It comes from various experience from different projects, especially e-house specifications. So mainly we involve civil disciplines, HVAC, fire and gas, instrumentation and control. But in the end, we need to have something functional, something that fits the requirements of the project and doesn't cause a lot of headache or a lot of problems to the project and to the, of course, to our suppliers and OEMs. So that's the key here.
Now, if you're leading towards more the specification side, depending on your client, of course, and then you go bridge through to functional specs. But if you lean towards more of the specifications, how do you keep your technology up to date? How do you keep your knowledge base, white hot?
Yes, yes, I agree with you. So basically, exposure. So as an EPC, you need to be up to date according to what's happening in the market. We always gradually invite suppliers and OEMs always to conduct workshops inside the company to update us with the latest technologies and to implement them in the future projects. So that is key. Also on previous projects, we always keep the lessons learned for each project, especially for the e-house projects. What was the challenges? What was the errors? What caused us a lot of cost or schedule impact in order to avoid them in our current project or in the future projects. So it's always a key. Keep up to date, exposure to different suppliers, to different technologies, workshops, and it gives you of course an edge for the future projects.
So you could bring those lessons into a functional spec without technically specing it in too much detail.
For sure.
Yeah, but I've seen you're smiling on the question. I think
the challenge is how to give freedom to the ultimate suppliers, I think. So we've seen a trend from end users going to way more functional specifications towards the EPCs. The EPCs does the translation. Of course, they need to do a basic design, because if you just push down the end users' functional requirements to sub-suppliers, then everyone gets lost. So there's definitely an important role to play for the EPC, but the amount of technical details and flexibility that you would allow sub-suppliers to take defines the amount of innovation and optimization that sub-suppliers can do. As an OEM, we might have thresholds for certain equipment. If you go beyond, we need to select another type of equipment, massively impacting the space requirements and weight requirements. So if we get a functional specification from a single line point of view, and we might be able to change impedance ratings of transformers and short circuit ratings of equipment and so on, that means that we can far better evaluate the capabilities we have within our portfolio. This is something that we as an OEM can do best. But this depends on the degree of freedom. If it's a very strict technical specification and we just have to comply, then we are limited. That is just a type of equipment. We can discuss how we are going to arrange it, how to set this best in the substation to do the best Tetris. But if we can also play with the building blocks itself, of course, it needs to functionally be able to distribute the electricity towards the feeders. But this is always a challenge. And this is especially something where I see in early stage during feed, you often can get this freedom. While later on, if you go to the final procurement processes, it's more challenging. So
what you're saying is sometimes you design or you make a specification and you're on a threshold. Sometimes with more flexibility from you, we don't have to go to the next size up, for instance, on a switchgear.
Yeah.
You could tolerate that one and have a bit of a bandwidth, and there's a financial benefit, but also fit for purpose, right?
Yeah, so just to add that as system integrators, I fully agree with what I'm hearing here. So that functional specification gives us the ability to get a larger solution space to work with the solutions. So, you know, our teams have been working for over 50 years building containerized buildings. We do nothing else but do this. So for us is to have these lessons learned and these experiences that we have to give us the best solution. And far too often we are confronted with, as you say, very stringent, detailed specifications, which basically cripples us from adding value.
Yeah.
So, but however, we do understand that certain clients do have needs and desires and standardizations in their plants where they want specific solutions. So for me, it's a blend between the two of functional and detailed, but that early engagement, as you mentioned, with open discussions to allow that room for discussion for finding the best solution, that is critical. And that does require a level of trust, which is obviously difficult in a tendering situation. So that's why I think that early engagement, maybe even pre-tendering, is very important.
Yeah, we found success in the pre-contractor or early contractor or vendor involvement on projects, because then it goes into our preliminary, then detailed design, and we're seeing the benefits of that. But like you say, it's a new way of thinking. It's not the old tendering. Here's a tender. Everybody check the box. Please comply to the costing structure, because you don't see that come through. You have to have an early contractor or vendor involvement, discuss it. Yes, it's time, yes, but that gives a better solution when you do a bid evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's killing for our technical guys, myself also being technical. When we see these specifications on the table, every engineer in the room is saying,
why would we do
why are we doing this?
Because he said so.
It's some requirement from 1998 that everyone knows is no longer valid.
Yeah.
But all you hear is apples with apples, comply with the bid. So this is a mindset that we need to break, because I think it's beneficial for all parties at the table that we can all add value this way.
Especially now that you go into a complete package for the containerized substation, including all the equipment inside, the degree of flexibility should now be more with the integrator than the EPC. Before, the EPC had to manage every interface from the low voltage switchgear, transformer, high voltage, including the building, the contractor. So you had to specify everything yourself as an EPC to be able to manage these interfaces. Now you can bundle this as a complete package. And like end users did in the past, they can offload more flexibility towards subcontractors, which makes it more difficult for procurement to compare bids. But that's where the technical team needs to be involved to qualify the solutions.
Yeah, well, as the end user doing the technical and the bid evaluations with procurement, that also needs to change.
Yeah,
we need to be modern. We need a blend of procurement and technical, and even construction involved when we do those evaluations, because it's just not just based on price, it's based on more than that. It's based on where you line the risk.
Absolutely.
And if the risk is clear in your offer, we can evaluate it better and we can choose the right solution. It's all about also reducing the list and not breaking this apart and specifying too much.
Absolutely. And this is where the challenge, I think, also with, with the EPC it comes in, because very often when we see a client EPC relationship, we are very often in discussion with the EPC, and it's how to get these parties involved in that discussion, because there might be a very good technical requirement on the table, but we would like to have a discussion about that, and it's getting through to the right people to challenge, to say, look, we understand where you're coming from. We have another solution that will give you what you need, what we think you need, but we need to have open-mindedness. And that's difficult in a strict tendering process.
Yeah, as I mentioned, it comes always with the lessons learned. It comes always with the experience. And as you mentioned, I would like to add that sometimes during the feed stage of the project, we try to early engage the suppliers with the requirements and with the space and with the specifications, in order to give us heads up. No, this will cause a problem in the future. We have another solution. Yeah. So this always is an important approach. Especially at the feed stage of the project, to settle these kind of requirements. So it's really important.
I'm sure you felt the same. When we deal with the vendors and the solution providers, traditionally they're reluctant to share that information. There's a cost involved. Whether it's 6,000, 10,000 euros. Yes. And we're willing to maybe pay for that to get that in, or not, because if you put the effort in the front end, you're going to reap the benefits in the tender and the bid evaluation, because you should be better than your competitors.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's a different way of thinking. So the whole market, I feel, needs to change on how we evaluate.
Yes, flexibility of suppliers and bidders in this stage is really important. And it's key for all parties, because, if you're not being helpful in the beginning, you need a PO in the beginning or something like that. Yeah, it's a bad thing for us and EPC and the client, and also for the supplier.
Here becomes a challenge where we say we've got all these good ideas, we don't want to give them away.
Yes. This
is where
you don't give away everything, of course, but you give the key highlights.
There needs to be trust.
Yes.
And if we have trust, we can work together as partners to come with a solution.
Yes.